Well, I'm the person between the artist and the media, the printed media. So I basically will take a record and promote it to different journalists and different publications across the board. So, I mean, what I do really, you could probably go out and do tomorrow, but it's the fact that I've got 8 years of contacting experience that gives it that sort of leverage.
A press person is really an intermediary between the artist and the press. So my job is essentially to be that kind of buffer zone in between. So if people are wanting things from the artist, I'm there in the middle to make sure that we do the right thing. Also at the same time, when it kind of goes the other way and we want to sell things into the press, you know, it's my job to be linking in with those people to be pushing whatever's new and hot to them.
More often than not, press will lead a campaign. You know, reviews, press doesn't really sell a record per se, but what press does, it alerts people like radio, retail to what's going on, and it sets a tone for a campaign, and it also sets a perception for people. So more often than not, press is up front of like radio play, and you know, obviously the album being actually in the shops.
In terms of the other areas of the record company, radio, TV, marketing, etc., a press campaign provides kind of an extra arm of a presence in the marketplace. So if you're hearing a record on the radio, you're seeing it on the TV and you're reading about it, then it's kind of an extra area where you it logs in your brain, oh yeah, that's that track or that's that person. At the same time, it helps build a fan base. It also helps a lot of places like radio and TV on a lot more specialist acts, and some of the bigger acts that are coming out from the States as well, in terms of saying, this is huge, this is big, this is what the critics are talking about. So it kind of builds a foundation for the artist, and if you've got a good press campaign that runs through a campaign from start to finish, then it's kind of like the backbone really. It helps just deliver a credible, well, a lot of the time a credible artist. I mean, obviously it depends where you go, you know, what areas you're going in, but mainly it provides that kind of backbone.
Ideally, before the release of a single or album, it depends artist by artist, but I just like to have a broad, structured, definite campaign. So it doesn't have to be absolutely everywhere, but just very well chosen publications from each area, so it feels, you know, well-rounded. That would be my ideal scenario.
Usually, my kind of comfort period is about 3 months, but it can even start before that in terms of development, in terms of setting up the artist and the tools of the trade, you know, to kind of get things in the right, like biographies, writing a biography, getting pictures done, those kind of things. But I ideally, to actually be able to go into the press with a record and a biography and pictures, for me it's 3 months. The monthlies tend to work, most monthlies tend to work in about 6 weeks up front to actually do the interviews. So they're booking things about 8 weeks up front. So if you've got like a month where you can actually take stuff through to them and play it to them, send it to them so they can digest it, then that's your perfect scenario.
The most important tool in my trade would probably be communication, because obviously I'm spending a lot of time talking to people, talking to journalists, talking to managers. So being articulate and keeping a cool head, and you know, they're the most important things really in my job.
The most important tool of my trade has to probably be my phone, purely because I have to be contactable pretty much 24/7. Although I got one of these new BlackBerry things, which just means that I have less sleep than I had before. Because you're dealing with America, you know, a lot of the American acts, and they wake up they're mostly based in Los Angeles, so they wake up at, you know, 6 o'clock when you finish your day, so they're getting through things from kind of 6 till kind of 2 in the morning. So you've got to be prepared to be contactable any time, and if you're not, then you can't do your job. Things take a lot longer. So yeah, definitely my BlackBerry phone, man. That is the most important thing for me.
I think I probably deal on average with, I don't know, there must be 80 to 100 publications that you deal with, from a fanzine level to a monthly to a weekly. In terms of actual contacts I deal with, I mean, we have around about 500 people on our list. I'm not saying that I talk to them every single day, but I mean, that's how many journalists are on our list. And then plus, obviously, talking to labels, managers. Yeah, quite a lot, really. Quite a lot of people you talk to day to day.
Everything that has print, I'm looking after. I mean, for me, it's national, so it's stuff that goes across the UK. But sometimes you get involved in some of the big Scottish papers as well. But it's, you know, everyone's doing magazines. So, I mean, there's a core kind of set of, you know, music publications and newspapers that you deal with on a regular basis. But for more specialist stuff, you're dealing with, you know, if you've got an urban act, like a garage act or a rap act, you're dealing with some of the specialist magazines, and there are, you know, kind of 10, 20, 30 of those kind of floating around as well. And you've got to hit those as well. You know, you can't just kind of leave, you know, just rely on kind of the core kind of things, because not everything's going to go straight to them. If you imagine that you've got a bunch of different press officers across the country who are, or, you know, across the different record companies, you know, freelance and kind of company based, that are working different acts, you know, 5, 6 acts themselves, and they're going to the same people with those acts. There's only a set amount of space. So, you know, you've got to look for alternative kind of areas in which you can get presence.
I would say that be aware that when you're promoting a record, it can be quite monotonous and wearing. And I find quite a lot of artists, especially when you're new, you get asked the same questions by press people, TV people, radio people. And I think you've got to keep in the back of your mind that this is your moment to say what you've got to say and to come across well. So to bear that in mind at all times, never get bored in an interview. And also, you know, bear in mind it's free advertising. Every time you do a piece of press, that page usually costs between, I don't know, £3,000, £5,000, £10,000 of advertising. That's free for you to sort of say what you want to say, so just bear that in mind.
If you're an artist and you're approaching that promotional period, you've just got to expect to work. You've got to be ready to, you know, just work all the hours that God sends, because there's never, if it's a hot act and it's ready to roll and you get your one chance, and a lot of the time you only get, you know, 1 or 2 chances to do it, to make it big. Just give it everything you got, you know, and be prepared to just try not to turn down anything. Just be prepared to work.
I think I've been successful working with a lot of the cutting edge acts such as The Streets or Kano, and originally doing Dizzy's press, because I think being a press officer you have to have elements of an A&R role, really, in that, you know, you need to be able to see that this artist has something different and is individual, and the press, the current trend in the press or music, you can see it actually fitting in. So you have to be able to, I think you have to be able to actually visualise a campaign, and you can see that in artist by artist. So, you know, I don't take on everything that I get offered. So I pick and choose because I think I can get press on that person. So therefore, more often than not, you get a higher rate of success. So yeah, there's definitely a level of A&R in there, I think.
If I was going to name 3 things that an artist needs to gain, or that I need, sorry, to create maximum exposure for an artist, I'd say great pictures, and not just a really good quality picture, but something interesting, something that kind of, you know, is creative. A great story, you know, a good angle, something that you can that can interest magazines, newspapers, press editors, because they want a story. At the end of the day, they're telling a story. You know, they get rap acts, rock acts through all the time, and a lot of them are quite similar. What sets them apart is that they've got something new to say. So that as well. Also, just great tools to be able to work with, like, you know, the biographies, and just having everything ready to roll, and have it all prepared. And then finally, I'd say, actually, to add one extra, I'd say that you have to have an artist, again, which I've said before, that's ready to work, you know, that's prepared to just get on with it.
Well, if you're talking about urban music or grime, I think that, you know, obviously you can have a record out there that's doing well on Channel U and it's doing well on One Extra, and magazines like Rewind will naturally write about you. But if you actually want to step it up a gear and, you know, move it out into a bigger arena, that's when you need to start to think about getting a press officer. The average cost of a press officer is anything between £500 to £3,000 a month, depending on the artist, really, and the level of the artist. The first person who usually approached me would be the label or the manager. I think I've been successful working with a lot of the cutting edge acts such as The Streets or Kano, and originally doing Dizzy's press, because I think being a press officer you have to have elements of an A&R role really, in that you need to be able to see that this artist has something different and is individual, and the press, the current trend in the press or music, you can see it actually fitting in. So you have to be able to, I think you have to be able to actually visualise a campaign, and you can see that in artist by artist.
Working with Dynamite was just amazing. She's fantastic. The actual campaign itself was amazing to work, just because it was like a roller coaster with all the award things that she was winning, and from a new artist standpoint as well, it just went kind of massive very quickly. And yeah, it's just it's exciting. There's always stuff around the corner that just it was just building and building and building. So for me it's been one of my best. It's like, I wouldn't say perfect, because nothing's perfect, but I'd say it's just it was the best campaign I've ever worked.
I mean, I've worked with The Streets from the very first white label of Has It Come to This. So when I first started doing the press with Mike, I mean, he didn't have a manager, he was on Locked On. There was an initial flurry of interest from places like The Face and Mixmag, and that we basically built it from them. So when the first album came out, Original Pirate Material, he had some really solid press. Originally I really thought that it would be a cult classic, Original Pirate Material, because he's definitely one of those artists, it's a bit like Marmite, you either love it or hate it. But in fact, it was more people loving it than hating it. So that campaign was bigger than I expected it to be, ultimately. So by the time this campaign came round, I'd already heard Fit But You Know It and Dry Your Eyes quite early on, and it was clear that, especially with Dry Your Eyes, that he had a potentially big hit on his hands. And because he is one of those artists that doesn't do absolutely everything press and promotion wise, there's always a level of intrigue with him and excitement. So by the time this album came round, there was definitely a huge level of interest. So press-wise, we did really well. We got 5 different covers and a few key features. And then obviously the radio and TV and everything just started to roll. And by the time Dry Your Eyes came out, the campaign was huge, and he had huge commercial success. Album at #1, single at #1 the same week. And yeah, it was very exciting to be part of it.
The hardest thing about my job is probably to knowing when to stop, because I love my job. I absolutely love my job. It's fantastic working with the people I work with, and as a result you can find that you can end up just working. There's never a day that I can walk away from work thinking I've done it all. There's always stuff you can be doing, and just being able to stop and say, right, that's it, I've got to finish up here, because there's times when I've burnt myself out just from being just wanting to keep on going and going and going. And it's like, that's what this industry's like. It's such good fun that you just want to keep doing it.
As your press officer kicks the campaign into action, your record company will begin to use club promotions people to service your record to club and specialist radio DJs.